Welcome. This is Happy Childless Mindset podcast. Welcome. Welcome to my first ever podcast episode. My name is Laura Viñasco. I'm 42 years old and I'm childless, not by choice. As a little kid, a little girl, I always dreamed about having a big family. My dad died when I was 4 months, and I'm an only child. My mom is a pediatrician, and she just buried herself in work, almost neglecting me. And I remember vividly being 5 years old, and that's my dog. And imagining I have a large family with a lot of siblings, and they were like 5 or 6 siblings, and they protected me and they took care of me, and well, the whole enchilada. Sometimes I played. I was the mom. I had to finish. I had to wait for my dog to finish going downstairs. She's loud. So sometimes I played being the mom with my baby dolls and that kind of stuff. And I always had a lot of kids. As I started to grow older, the fantasy was me as a mom with a husband and his siblings and their children. So my fantasies were all about this big family. Like I had 3 or 4 kids, and the more the merrier, that kind of stuff. I remember I was 11, 12, and I asked my mom to adopt a kid, and she said, "No, I can't." And I remember feeling like she's being so selfish. She doesn't care what I'm feeling, how lonely I am. And after I realized I was going to have children of my own, and I looked up what an adoption process is, and I realized she couldn't. I'm talking, it was the early 90s, and at least here in Argentina, single parents couldn't adopt. And this applied for me also, the bureaucracy, the social workers visiting my home and looking every single detail and aspect of my life. It's so stressful, and I get that they want to set the kid up for success, but sometimes as a potential parent, it is too much. So I forgave my mom for that, and I continue to be an only child. At 18, I moved out of the little town I grew up in, and I went to study in Buenos Aires, the biggest city in Argentina. And I had a boyfriend at that time, and he stayed in the town. When I came back that summer, we went to a New Year's Eve party that it, the whole town, the whole teenager town celebrated every year. And when we were leaving, he was really drunk. and we were starting to get back home. We were just walking up in the side of the road. It was 2 kilometers. I don't know how much that is in miles. Outside the town, it was a kind of a retreat thing. And he started beating me. I was wearing high heel shoes and a skirt, and I fall down and he kicked me. And a lot of cars passed by. Nobody stopped to help me. I don't know how much time I was in that situation until the police arrived and they put him in the police car and left me there, walking alone and beaten 2 kilometers. And the story doesn't end there. I decided I didn't want to see him anymore. I didn't want to have anything to do with him. And he started stalking me, waiting outside my home, outside my friend's home, outside the grocery store, everything I went, he was outside. And I ended up going back with him because I didn't know how to live otherwise. When I went back to Buenos Aires, like 2 months after that, I was brave enough to left him, but that stayed with me. I was always an anxious person, and I have too much trauma to tell, and more in a upbringing podcast, but I need to tell the things. So when I was 20, I started to have panic attacks, and I just started running to my home. I didn't care how far I was, I ran. Going out started to be really, really difficult. And I was diagnosed with severe anxiety, panic attacks, and agoraphobia, and later on in life with complex PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So around my 21, I stayed home in my flat, in my apartment, for almost 7 months without being able to pass through the threshold of the building. I could receive things, I could send things out, but I couldn't get out. I struggled with the anxiety and the depression that came from that. And at 23, 22, 23, I started martial arts because I told myself, no one is ever going to beat me again. And then I met my next partner. We flirt and fool around for almost a year and a half, and we hit it off, and we kind of start living together right off the bat. And he didn't beat me, but he abused me so far much worse than everything. Of course, he started being charming and everything you expect a man to be. But once he realized he had me, that I was in love with him, and he started telling me that I was a worthless piece of shit, that nobody could love me, and sex was a coercion. I had to have sex with him because otherwise he would left me. So as you could imagine, can imagine, my anxiety spiked again because I was living in constant fear and stress 24/7. I ended up, I don't know how, but telling him I didn't want to be in that relationship anymore. And he told me, fine. And he was like relieved, I think. Half an hour later, I begged him to take me back. And thankfully, he told me not. He told me like I wasn't the same, like I was a bad partner, a lot of things. So with that, I had to call my mom and ask her to come to get me in Buenos Aires. And I ended up going back to live with her, severely medicated. Like I was taking so much medication that I wasn't even able to follow a rerun of The Simpsons or Friends. I didn't understand what was happening. I don't remember much about this stage in my life. And I started chatting with another guy I met in martial arts. And we started dating, long distance dating, but he would come visit me like every other week. So about a year later, we moved together. I moved back to Buenos Aires and we were getting along fine and life was somewhat good. I wasn't happy, but I still was sedated. In 2012, I was 30 and we moved here to Tandil, where I'm currently living. We started doing some hormone treatment, some fertility treatment, but really low complexity. And he started not coming home and withholding money. I had a business, a pet shop, but I had to close it. Some paperwork thing with the mayor's office. Is not the mayor's office in English, but I don't remember how it's well, anyways, I had to bureaucracy thing. I had to close it. So I started to be home 24/7. And he told me like, if we want you to be a mom, I want you to be a full-time mom. And I was okay with that. And the child didn't came and the pregnancy didn't came. So full of hormones, feeling isolated in a new city without any money of my own, I started to become really bitter. And on December 24th, before we were going to sit with my mom to celebrate Christmas Eve, he left me. I was full of hormones. We had an appointment for me to go to the doctor like in 3 or 4 days. The separation was messy. He left me with nothing, not even, I don't know, a mattress for my bed. So I stayed single for a couple of more years. And I think I was 34, 35. I started dating a new guy, but I was super anxious and I was super scared. And I know I was a pain in the ass, a royal pain in the ass. I hadn't processed my part of the responsibility of those 3 abusive relationships I was. So he ended up leaving me, and with good reason. We are still friends, and he's without a doubt a wonderful person, and I don't blame it at all. He was so right. But with that said, I ended up having another period of severe agoraphobia where I couldn't get out of my house, and that grew into me not being able to be alone at all. Like, I wasn't even able to take a shower without somebody talking to me. So I spent a lot of time trying to build myself up from that experience. I listened to a lot of podcast videos, read a lot of books about changing my framework and understanding my trauma and taking responsibility for the places and the situations I put myself into, starting to understand that I am worthy of love, of respect. I am worthy of being alive, because that's my main belief, that I'm not worthy of being alive, that I'm a waste of oxygen. So it's a working process, I don't have that belief now, but sometimes it pops up like, hi, did you forget about me? So in 2019, it was the end of 2019. I was like starting to feel myself again and having more confidence and being able to be alone and enjoy being alone, because that's something I really enjoy doing. And the pandemic hit a few months after. So it was supposed to be for 15 days at first, and my best friend, he was looking for an apartment and he was living with 2 other friends of us. And he agreed to come to live with me because I didn't want to be alone for 15 days. And I couldn't reach out to them to come to my home if I needed anything, because at least here in Argentina, you couldn't be on the streets without a permit. We lived together that year, and it was a good experience for me, the pandemic. We both got COVID, but a lower case. I don't know how to say it. Either way, it let me reveal myself because I didn't have to push me to get out of my home because I couldn't. But at the same time, it let me relax and not being in that fight or flight mode. So, yeah, I know the pandemic was awful and a lot of people died, and I'm not trying to deny that. I'm just saying that for me it was a blessing in disguise. So I'm 30. I don't remember. Well, I think 2022 I finally started to living beyond my survival mode. I started going to the gym. Like, I first started going 3 times a week, and the gym was just a block away from my home, and I had to text 2 or 3 people to let them know I was going, and that was I was in the gym, and then was coming back home. And then at that same year, I started Googling and trying to understand what was that anger and that sadness I felt every time I saw a pregnant woman, or every time someone tell me, you're getting older, you are not going to have kids, and knowing I couldn't. That I tried, I didn't have the money, and as I said, I couldn't adopt. I have anxiety, and I can't bring a child to live with that. And I got to know the word childless and the word child free. And I understood what a childless not by choice means. I understood the grief, and I realized I was processing that grief alongside with my anxiety and my depression. So I went through my grief rather quickly because I been I had been working on myself so much that I healed that part. But getting to know that I wasn't alone, that there was a word for what I was going through, that there were a lot of other women going through the same thing, made me feel relief. I'm not happy any woman that wants to have children, that dreams of that, have to go through being childless. But I am relieved I'm not alone. And I am relieved that they are not alone either. So this first episode is a bit of a downer, but I needed to tell my story because I need you to understand where I'm coming from. I didn't have a super bright pink life. I had a rough life, and I realized that happiness comes from within, comes from what we perceive, how we interpret what we perceive, what we listen, see, from who are the people that surround us, how we treat ourselves, how we let others treat us, how we think about the world. And in next episodes, I want to speak about how to change our beliefs, how to change our focus, our I don't remember how it's said, but we have this mechanism where when our brains filter the things we don't need to pay attention and the needs that we need to pay attention, and how to hack that to look for more things that actually give us joy. So I hope I didn't bore you. I'm sorry for the stutter and for the hands movements. I'm really, really nervous doing this. I've been wanting to record this podcast for over a year, and it's time to stop finding excuses. I want to thank Lucy Megel. I can't say her last name, but she's from Thriving Solo, Spinterhood Reimagined, and she gave me some golden advice. And here I am after her little push. Her advice gave me the confidence to finally record this. So, like if you want to, and leave me a comment, subscribe, wherever you feel like it. Thank you for listening me, and see you next time. Bye.